Lead as you go, a Manousso musing with Reverend Tope Popoola, part of the series Titans of Mediation with Dr. Barbara Manousso. That is your topic for today. Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and Podcast by InstantMediations.com, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube, the Instant Mediations app, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer, as cases are fact-dependent. Hi, everyone. This is Mac Pierre-Louis, attorney, mediator, arbitrator, working throughout Florida and Texas.
And Natalia advocate, mediator, and arbitrator from Warsaw, Poland.
And I'm Dr. Barbara Sunderland Manousso, and I'm in Newport, Rhode Island, and Houston, Texas. And I am a trainer and practitioner in mediation and arbitration. So it's with great pleasure that I have today to introduce a prolific author who has written many books that help mediators expand their business, work with the clients that they might have in the employment area. And it's especially important for me. I do a lot of work in the office organizational mediation field. So we are blessed today to have Reverend Tope Popoola. And he is here to talk about his latest book, Lead as You Go. And his background is fantastic. Not only is he an author of many books, he is a mediator, and he is an international businessman who's worked in over 40 countries. So he certainly has a wealth of information to share with us today and in his wonderful books. So welcome, Reverend Popoola.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manousso. So it's such a joy and a privilege to be here.
And you're one of our titans of mediation, because people will take a mediation training, they get the skill set, and they don't sometimes see the whole picture of that they are entrepreneurs and business is important. And once they have these skills, one of the big markets for mediation is going into corporations and different size companies that the employees are having issues. And very often it's because their boss or the leadership has thrown the employees under the bus, so to speak. And they are the victims of bad leadership. So please tell us, Lead as You Go, why was this book important for you to write? And what is the essence of it? That will be our takeaway today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manousso. This book actually was born out of personal experience and also from my background as a minister. Now, one of the challenges of my part of the world, especially, that we have is sometimes when you ask people, why is it that the society is the way it is? Why is there so much underdevelopment? Why is it that people are not getting things done easily? Why don't we have structures that are sustainable? Why don't we have systems that work? And the next answer that people will give you is, oh, our leadership. Our leaders are corrupt. Our leaders are this. Our leaders are that. And then the question I ask myself is, how are leaders produced? Where do leaders come from? Leaders don't just jump on the scene. Leaders, emerge through a process. In a political system, you're talking about maybe a democracy or maybe if you have a monarchy or something. But leaders are first and foremost ordinary people. They started with a family. They started from a place where nobody knew them. And I say to people that, look, if you have an elected president, or and I'm not talking about nations alone now, a president of an organization, that person, is also next door neighbor to just another person, lives in a particular area of town, or lived in a particular area of town where nobody knew him. So, in other words, the system produces leaders after its kind. And so, for you to now turn around and blame that person who is now number one for what he is doing now, you will be missing it's like you didn't get the memo. The real deal is that all of us will manifest who we are when given power. So power or authority does not change a person. It only amplifies his character, and it's just a platform to advertise his personality. So when you have authority or you're given power, you're giving a platform to do the things that you had always been. Remember what not that you had always done, but you had always been. So that's your real self now manifesting on a platform where more people, are exposed to you. So I came to the understanding that before you talk about the man at the top, you got to point a finger towards yourself and ask yourself, what kind of person am I now? Now, humanity began from the basis of leadership. God, that's why I said from my perspective as a minister, when God created, if you believe in the biblical account of creation, which I do, God created man for leadership. So every one of us is born with the capacity for it. And the primary ingredient for that is the ability to take responsibility for outcomes at any point in time. That's the basic ingredient. So lead as you go is a way of giving you, the tools that you need to empower you as a person to learn how to take responsibility for the outcomes that you seek. Now, in my part of the world, we pray a lot. People pray and pray over everything. They just believe that if you can just pray, God is just going to do it, and that's it. But I tell people, yes, I'm a minister of the gospel. I believe in miracles. I've seen several. But God gave you a brain so you can give him a break. So for as long as you can take responsibility for outcomes, you're a leader.
Oh, lots of good points there, right? Everyone was listening really intently. Thank you so much for that. Something you said the system produces leaders after its own kind. I think that's how you said it. Could you elaborate a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Okay. Now, for instance, let's look at a community. Starting from the families in the community. If you have dysfunctional family systems in a community, and eventually somebody emerges at the head of that community as leader, what is it going to do? It's going to replicate the same dysfunction as the leader. Mm-hmm. Now you come to that place and you're wondering why family life there is a mess and all of that. He's a product of a messed up family structure himself. So you can't give what you don't have, and no man can function beyond what he knows. So this is the thing. So good example. If you're a member of, say, a club or a society, and you're like the treasurer or the financial, you're the person in charge of the finances, right? And you don't give account, you're not accountability is not a very strong point with you. And maybe you actually misappropriate the funds of the organization, of that little community of maybe a club or society, and you misappropriate funding. Now, at the end of the day, if you become, say, a governor of a state where you now have to superintend a budget, of a whole state. What are you going to do with the money? Exactly the same thing. So, nobody comes into power who has not gone through a process of development. So the system that produces you, unless you deliberately interrogate that system, look at the dysfunctions in the system and tell yourself, I shouldn't be like this, you're just simply going to reproduce what that system expects. Now, there are certain ways a person will come to America and do business, that if you try to do the same somewhere in Africa or in another part of the developing world, you're not going to get the same results. Now, the PDIA program in Harvard, it talks about some of those things. Why is it that development models in the first world, as we like to call it, in the developed world, when you bring some of those models and you try to bring them into the developing world, in the third world, those models fall flat on their face. Now you ask yourself why? But they work so well in America. They work so well in the UK. They work so well in other parts of Europe, in Germany. Now, but they get to Africa and boom, it collapses. It's not working. Why? Because the people who brought the models never interrogated what's on ground. What is working locally? What is not working? Why do the people here behave in a particular way that is totally different? Is it a cultural thing? Is it a moral thing? Is it an exposure thing? Now, if you don't interrogate all of those issues, you're going to have a problem, because then the model you're bringing in has no buy-in. Nobody. It's strange. It's like you're bringing a whole strange ideology. People don't understand it. Now, if I have never known what it is to write a report, and all I've done is give verbal reports all my life, and then you now come with a system that says that at the end of every week, I have to give a written report of everything that I've done, I'm going to fight it. I'm going to resist it because I'm not used to it. So these are dimensions of leadership that we need to interrogate that we're not interrogating.
And following on that, it's not the first time that you deal with leadership in your books. Your previous book that is already available was The Leadership is for the Dead.
Yes.
So I understand that this question of leadership is so fascinating to you that you want to expand more and add into that. And since it's based on your personal experience, please explain to us why leadership is for the dead.
Okay. One of the key ingredients or requirements of effective leadership is sacrifice. You've got to die to some things if you want to be effective. There's certain things you will have to get rid of. Okay? Like, instant gratification, for instance. Leadership is not about how much you do, it's about how much you are able to get done. And the principle behind that is this. It's about investing yourself in other people. It's about developing people. It's about getting people to do things. A great leader is not known by how much he is up front, hugging the limelights and just, bringing attention all to himself. That's a dictator. At best, you probably would be a terrorist. But the thing is, you don't look at leadership from the point of self. You look at leadership from the point of how am I able to serve people? How many people can I serve? And that's why when you talk about leadership, you're talking about the ability to influence people, okay, to get certain things done. Somebody once said that one of the ways by which you know a leader is when he tells his followers jump, they simply ask how high. And another definition, another description that I saw somewhere, which I got fascinated with, is that a leader is somebody that people would follow, right, to any length, if only for the sake of the adventure. That sometimes, the leadership, the character of a leader is what lends credibility to his performance. So we're talking about integrity. You're talking about the fact that you have to do what others are not willing to do. You have to pay a price that others are not willing to pay. Responsibility comes at a cost. So that's what that book is talking about. You don't, we can all identify problems. Anybody. It doesn't take too much intelligence to identify a problem. And it's not rocket science either to analyze the problem. And on the average today, that's what the press is doing for us. Even if we're too lazy to analyze, you go online, you go everywhere, you open newspapers, somebody's analyzing the problem. So the world is not in shortage of identifiers of problems. It doesn't have a lack of analysts of problems. It doesn't have, a lack of people who curse the problem. And we can know who caused it, and we can curse those who caused it. However, very few people step up to the plate and say, I'm going to do what I can about it. And such people must be service-minded, they must be community-oriented, and there must be people who are willing to say, if there is a problem to be solved, as long as it lies within my capacity, I'll do it. And those are the people that stand out from the pack. When I tell people that you don't need to make a lot of noise to be noticed. Just do something that others are not willing to do. Just take responsibility for solving a problem that others will just walk by, and just pretend like they didn't see it. And this is it. And look what you look at the business spectrum today. What are the businesses that are making money? What are the businesses that are succeeding? The businesses that are solving significant problems for people. This is where the rubber meets the road. So whether in mediation or in the real world of business, you are taking responsibility. That's what a mediator is doing. You are responsible for birthing outcomes. And we must never forget that when people come to the table of negotiation or mediation, there are outcomes that we have in mind. Okay? Everybody comes with his own initially agenda or position, but what is your job as a mediator? It is to guide the process, okay, by which these people, by engaging with, themselves, can come to a solution that is the desirable and the desired outcome for both parties. And that is the whole essence. Once you have done that, you have provided leadership right there. So the practice of mediation is a practice of leadership. It's not just a function that you do out of duty. It is you're guiding people to engage in a process that births an outcome. So you are helping them to take responsibility. And when you do that, they're grateful because problems are solved. And that is the whole essence of effective leadership.
Reverend Popoola, you're so on point. Your takeaway is direct and it really resonates. So in the corporate world, the culture of the employee that might be going to mediation is flows down from the culture of whatever the leadership is. But then the second element that's so crucial to the process is how the mediator isn't just following the parties, but they are also providing leadership so that you can reset or refresh the parties that have come to mediation who need to find a solution and not be stuck in the maybe culture that they have been working in, that they're able to move forward. And that is just such a strong message. And that's why you are a titan of mediation. And we're so grateful for you joining us today, sharing your information. I'm excited about your new book that's coming out, Lead As You Go. It certainly is something that every mediator and arbitrator needs to be aware of. So thank you for joining us today, and blessings to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manousso, for having me.
Thank you.
All right. Until next time, guys. If you want to check out Reverend Popoola's site, be sure to go to topepopoola.com.ng, and be sure to check the other podcast episode we did with him on the other book. So with that, signing out, everybody. Take care.